Hey, it's Terry Bean with another fun episode of the MCC show. With me today is this guy, Jeff Bajorek. Listen, we're going to have a great conversation. We're going to talk about sales. We're going to talk about that dreaded prospecting that you should probably be doing instead of watching this, but watch this because we're going to show you how to do it better. We're going to talk a little bit about maybe some call reluctance. We're going to talk about setting the appointment and going in to get that ink, right? Because that's all that it's about. So I'm going to go talk to him. You stay right there. Come with us. Jeff Bajorek, how you doing, man?
I'm doing well, Terry. It's weird. I'm not often in a podcast and interview setting where you can actually see all of me, right? So I don't know how I should sit and I'm not like a legs crossed guy, so I can't do that. So I'm just gonna be, I'm just gonna make it weird if I can, if that's okay.
And stepping around is going to be weird, but the good news is you wore cool shoes. So, I mean, at least
Can they
you got
see
that.
the shoes? I don't. It's
Well, can you see the shoes, people?
don't comment on that.
Natalie, the director, is shaking her head no. She's
Is this
saying no.
the same Natalie that was a blue screen a little earlier?
Well, it's teal. Let's be honest. It's not really blue.
That's fine.
Does that matter?
We didn't come here to talk about blue screen.
We should have, because we actually have some experience in the blue screen.
We got that down.
It's very Smurfy. We
Yes.
did come to talk about sales, though.
Yes.
And you were a outstanding sales performer in the medical device space and decided, I've had enough of this. I want to be a sales coach. How'd that transition happen?
Well, there's more transitions actually since then.
Okay.
If we can take it that far, I think, like a lot of people, you follow a career path, you take it to its logical conclusion, and then you wonder what next. And I saw that there really wasn't another step for me to take in that company. I started to look at some of the things that I was good at, started to look at some of the things that really interested me and have always interested me, and that's talent development and helping other people see what they're capable of. And so I kind of took those two things, put them together, and said, let's give this a shot. What's interesting, though, and when I say there were more developments since then, I don't call myself a sales coach.
Okay.
Because there are certain people who I think epitomize sales coaching. And that's not me. That's not what I want to do. I also see other people who epitomize sales training and sales trainers. And that's not me. That's not what I want to do. I'm a consultant. I have strategic discussions with companies. I have strategic discussions with small business owners. I have those same discussions with vice presidents and C-level executives with larger companies as well. Training is a part of what I do. It's a part of what I bring to the consultation. Coaching is a part of what I do. And I still love seeing those light bulbs go off over people's heads, right? But for me, I never had a level of comfort calling myself a sales coach, because when you say sales coach, people think of certain people. And I did not want to be really kind of pigeonholed in that regard, because once people know that you're something, they think you're that thing, and it's hard to break from that. The other thing is, and I struggled for a long time to call myself a consultant, because I saw consultants, particularly on LinkedIn or whatever, and those were always the out-of-work sales guys that were in between gigs, and they're consulting now, and it's like, oh man, that's not me. Like, and for as much as that term is kind of spoken about and used, no, I'm a consultant. I work with teams to develop and implement their sales strategies, and then part of that implementation is where the coaching and the training comes in. But if you want to hire a sales coach, hire Dave Tier. You and I have known Dave for a long time, and he was very generous to me in kind of showing me the ropes and what it takes to be an independent consultant like this. And I've told him this. Actually, this was, I think this was the words that I used when I recommended him on LinkedIn. Actually, it was like, look, if he's your guy. I mean, his picture is next to the term sales coach in my mental encyclopedia. So when I think of coach, I think of Dave.
It's interesting because I would never call you coach. If Tier were sitting here, I would call Tier coach.
Right.
I might not even call him Tier. I might just call him coach.
Yeah.
Right? So that's
Yeah.
a really good distinction, and I appreciate the difference. And when you said there are certain people that you think of when you say sales coach, Dave Tier's that guy.
He's the guy.
He's that guy. All right. So enough about that. We can have Dave
let's
on
talk
later.
about Dave.
We did a whole podcast on Dave Tier. You're at salescoachescorner.com. Go check it out. No, seriously. So I appreciate the distinction there, right? And that is an important one, and I understand consultant's kind of an odd term for you. You gotta grow into it. You gotta at least own it at some point. But there is a major distinction between that out of work person and what's next. So you mentioned developing and implementing sales strategies for your customers. So I would imagine there's some level of individualization for each one. And so where does that start? Where does the development start? And how can you relate that to an audience of someone that's like, hey, I own an insurance company, but I know that I got to keep selling every single day. I got to keep prospecting. I got to keep that funnel full, right? I was talking to a mortgage lady today that was talking about I got to get that funnel full. You know, so how do we look at what you do at a high level for a big company, and that may work for somebody that's a sole proprietor?
It all starts with asking questions, and that's where the consultant part comes in, right? I don't make any assumptions, and I think assumptions are the death of salespeople. They're the death of sales organizations. When you just assume that people act a certain way for a certain reason, whether that's your customers, whether those are your salespeople, right? I mean, the more I get into this, the more I realize that everybody has their own reasons to ask or to act, and unless you're asking the right questions to learn about why people do what they do, you're never going to have the right incentives. You're never going to have the right sales pitch. That's why, the canned sales pitch is, I don't want to call it dead, but it's not the be-all, end-all, right? I mean, for you to have your 30-second personal commercial and just deliver that and kind of spray and pray everywhere you go, there's diminishing returns to that. Because what if people don't respond to the message that you're broadcasting? If you're advertising, you're just trying to catch as many eyeballs or as many ears as you possibly can, and hopefully whatever resonates comes back to you, and people pick up the phone and call, or send you an email, or click the link to go to your landing page and give their information. That can work. It's viable. But for most people, especially when you get into a lot of the audience for Motor City Connect, who are small business owners and entrepreneurs and doing their side hustles and everything, I think when you go to a single message to a large audience, you lose the connection that you're trying to accomplish. And you can't individualize everything, but I think you have to be willing to personalize your outreach. You have to be able to personalize your attempts.
One size does not fit all.
No, it never does.
Does it even fit many?
Well, if you're trying to have it fit, if it's going to fit 1% of the people, then just reach more people, and that 1% will be larger. Okay.
Great.
But I don't like that. I also think that is the part of selling and outbound selling that will be automated, because if there's no personalization to it, if there's no humanization to the messaging, well, then a computer can do it, and a computer can do it, or a robot can do it way better, way more efficiently, way more effectively, way more often, all of those things better than any person will ever be able to do. But if you can think about what you're trying to do, if you can think about who you're trying to reach, and then you can think about the best way to reach them, then you're going to be much more effective. And what if instead of reaching 1,000 people hoping that 10 of them show up, what if you can reach 10 people in the hopes that 4 of them show up, right? What if you can reach 100 people in the hopes that 40 of them will resonate with what you're trying to say? It requires a little bit of thought. It actually requires a lot of thought. And if you can do something that's meaningful enough for those people, then they're going to be loyal. They are going to tell their friends. It's going to expand from there. And you can have a lot more fun doing what you're doing. The problem with the reach 100 people a day or call 100 people a day and hope that 10 of them pick up the phone and hope that 2 of them eventually buy from you is that is some of the most mundane work that anybody will ever do. It's not inspiring, so people don't do it.
Good luck doing that for 2 weeks straight.
2 weeks straight? There's people that are expected to do it for 30 years. Right? Listen, you can do pretty well in sales, but to do it for just 2 weeks and think that you can, give up after that, no, that's not how it works. So what is it you're trying to do? Think about it. And going back to your question about consultation. Okay, Acme Incorporated, who are you trying to reach here? What's the project that we're trying to do? What's the goal you're trying to accomplish? What are you doing right now to accomplish that? If you were doing what you needed to do, in order to accomplish that goal, you would have already accomplished it, and we wouldn't be having this conversation. So let's start from the ground up. Let's look at your processes. Let's look at the questions you're asking. Let's look at the way your salespeople are interacting. And it's not just manage the numbers through the pipeline, but are they doing anything that is effective in the process to move prospects through the process? Do they have a pipeline that is 3 to 4 times the value of their intended revenue goal? Because it's probably not, but it needs to be. There's so many different things that I do to evaluate not just where company sales processes are, but what they need to do, what they need to become in order to be more effective. And I think for so long, selling has been watered down to just this set of tasks that you need to do. And when you take ownership of the outcomes rather than responsibility for performing the tasks, the focus changes quite a bit.
So you said something about, I take a look at where they are and where they want to go. And then from my estimation, you probably help them bridge that gap somehow. And realistically, isn't that what every good sales solution does for a customer? It takes someone from current status to desired status and helps connect that dot?
Yes.
Okay. So that's the sales process.
That's, I mean, in a nutshell, in a very small nutshell, yes.
In a very small.
You've
Okay,
got-
we're done here, people.
Yes.
Oh, sorry.
Really good to be here today, thank you. Well, I mean, I sell something different now than I used to. I used to sell a product. It was a single-use product in the operating room. It was great, we had fun. I saw people's lives change right in front of me, and it was so rewarding. And then I took a look at the industry. I didn't like exactly where it was going, so I decided to do something different. And now I sell a different solution that gets people to a better desired state. And I see lives change right in front of me.
So it wasn't going toward like the $6 million man with bionic parts and that wasn't cool, or was it going that way? And that was.
What you realize, Terry, very quickly, is that when you have to have surgery for anything, you can never be restored even to where you were pre-injury, right? So it's not about making, people certainly are bionic, but they can't do some of the things that they used to do. So I know that 70s and 80s TV had a huge impact on you, and you're hoping and really, you know, working hard
kid,
for
baby.
it.
That's how it goes, man. That's awesome. So, all right. So how do you prospect? You wrote a book on prospecting. 5 rules of prospecting. What's it actually called?
It's the 5 forgotten fundamentals of prospecting.
When speaking of forgotten.
And that camera wasn't on actually when I looked at that camera,
Right.
so it's totally fine. Someone saw the side of my face saying that, but no, I wrote a book called The 5 Forgotten Fundamentals of Prospecting, and I think there's a lot talked about social selling, right? When you're actually seeing that buzzword kind of reduced in its use now. There's the phone is dead, long live the phone. There's like it's email, it's automation, it's drip campaigns, it's all these other things. There is this conversation between, should I encourage people to come to me or should I go and reach them? I wouldn't dare interrupt anybody. That's where your call reluctance comes from. Inbound, outbound, I don't care. If you don't understand what you bring to the table, if you don't understand who you should be talking to, if you can't create any tension and back up that tension with any expertise, and if you can't keep your swagger about you, because selling's really hard, I don't care how you interact with prospects. Those are the things that people forget about when they think about their prospecting. They think, I've got to call, I've got to pick up the phone 100 times a day. I've got to have this perfectly created and crafted and rehearsed pitch that makes me sound so polished that I can't relate to anybody. And it doesn't matter whether it's through email. I don't care what your subject line is. Like, I get frustrated because people call me and they say, hey, can you help me create the subject line in my email or the words for my pitch that will guarantee a response? And I say, no. And then they get upset with me, right? And it's like, well hold on, what are you really let's talk about this. What are you really trying to accomplish? What are you saying right now that's not working? Why isn't that working? This is my favorite one. It's the voicemail message or the email that says, please let me know if you have any questions. Well, Jeff, no one's responding to my emails. No one has any questions.
Right.
If they're not interested, it's because you're not interesting. And you also haven't left them any specific call to action whatsoever. having a good conversation with someone with no next step is not that good of a sales conversation. Maybe you had fun, but when you make a sales call, Terry, are you looking to find a new friend, or are you looking to grow your business?
Grow business.
It's great if you can grow your business and then create a friendly relationship out of that. But I don't have any prospects who are looking for new friends.
Yeah, that's true. At least not in the initial front. They might be stuck with a new friend. You're an affable fella.
Well, and if it grows into that, that's fine. But I mean, gosh, I think about all the times where I could go to a networking event, or I could bring my wife to this client event or whatever. She's like, man, I don't want to go to that. Wait, Jeff, you're busy. You're traveling. You're working with clients. You're doing all the things you need to do. Like, I don't want to share you more. Like, you know, and I'm not the only. I'm not the only one with a wife or a spouse who thinks along those lines. So
Right.
this whole idea of, well, get your customers out or your prospects out in a situation where it's not about work. Let's invite them to this cocktail party. Let's invite them to the ball game or whatever. And I don't want to spend 4 hours at Comerica Park with someone who's not my friend, right? Or I'm going to go share my wife, and that's our time together, and we're going to have to go have awkward conversations with people we don't know. Like,
And pretend to be super interested,
Right,
right? Oh
and
my God, this is
it's-
the best time ever. No, it's not.
So, you asked me how I prospect. I do some outbound prospecting. I get a lot of leads coming in. I create a lot of content. But I think there are a lot of myths out there around inbound prospecting and even outbound prospecting, like we talked about, to where, like, if you don't recognize the opportunity to connect with someone, then you're missing the opportunity to prospect.
You create a ton of content. I get a newsletter from you twice a week. Sunday and Tuesday.
Every other Tuesday.
Every
I
other
don't
Tuesday?
abuse my mailing list.
Okay.
That's not what this is
No,
about.
no, no. And and your newsletters are value add. It seems like it's every Tuesday. No offense. And I don't catch the Tuesday one as much as I did. I almost always read the Sunday one. But you also have a boatload of videos on a YouTube channel that it looks like you've been working on for a couple of years. So you've been doing that on a fairly regular basis too. So it's always kind of structured. How do you decide what you're going to talk about, whether it be in the newsletter or be in the video? How do you know what problem to solve in the content you create?
Most of the stuff that I write about, and the thing that I'm anchored to, the piece of content that I'm anchored to, there's actually two, well, one and a half, is that Sunday email. And that is an email list that I've curated over the last, three and a half years. I think this week it'll be issue number 175. So that's 175 consecutive Sundays that an email has gone out to my audience, and that audience has grown exponentially over time, because I like to think anyway, it's because I'm putting stuff out there that people will respond to. That is the piece of content that I know has to go out come hell or high water every week. Sunday morning, 8 a.m., you're going to get it, unless I make a scheduling mistake on my automation and I send it out Saturday at 8 p.m. I've done that before too. It messes with people. My mistake, sorry. But and it's nice to know that you'd be missed if you were gone. I can tell you that. But
Right?
That's the piece of content that I'm anchored to, and that comes out of my thought process during the week, right? So sometimes I get on a roll, and like this morning, and it's a Tuesday, we're recording this. I'm about 90% done with Sunday's message. Sometimes I'm not even started until Friday, right? But there's something that's on my mind that I'm eager to get down. And writing is a very important part of my own creative process, regardless of how many people watch it or read it. Out of that Sunday message, 4 to 6 to 8 weeks later, those become blog posts. They're reformatted a little bit. I've got someone who helps me manage my content. She looks it over and says, Jeff, you talked about these 3 things here. Let's title this blog post 3 Ways to XYZ. Awesome. Thank you. We'll put it out there. And then as I go back, I will often just reread that post and then sit down in front of my computer, flip the camera on, and rant for 4 minutes. So all that content comes out of just my thought process throughout a regular week's time. The other thing that I have, and you've been a guest, is the Why and the Buy podcast. And so that's the other piece of content that I'm held accountable for. We record interviews, and we distribute and release those interviews on a weekly basis. And then every other Monday, it alternates between my partner Christy and I. We have what we call a Monday musing, which is 6 to 10 minutes of just a thought. Hey, get your week going if you listen to them that way. A lot of our listeners binge listen, so I don't even know if it matters that they come out on Mondays, but that is the other piece of content that I kind of hold myself accountable for every other week.
So I've been listening to some marketing podcasts lately, and one of the things that I heard that really smacked me upside the head was, if you're going to spend time creating content, that's super important. But you should spend 5 times the amount of that time promoting said content. Do you think you're doing that? Because I'm nowhere near that.
No. And I'll tell you why. I made the decision early on. Well, I had the idea early on that the reason I was going to be on social media was to have an internet presence, so that when people did come to look for me, they found something. Then I got lost in the sea of social media channels. Are you on YouTube? Got to be using video. Are you doing video on LinkedIn? Got to be doing that. Are you on Facebook? Are you doing Facebook Live? Are you on Instagram TV? Are you on Twitter? Are you on Snapchat? Are you on here? No, I'm not. I'm on Twitter. Most of that's automated. I do show up from time to time. I like to have fun with my friends. If you reach out to me on any channel, if you tag me, if you @ me, if you send me a direct message, it is me who responds.
Okay.
But I had to decide that I couldn't be everywhere and still run a business. And I think that is probably the biggest mistake that small business owners and solopreneurs and side hustlers make, is they hear this thing, social media, they feel like they have to be all over the place, and they do none of it well. I was doing none of it well. So I backed off of Twitter. You know what? I lost almost no followers. And it was because I wasn't gaining a whole lot of followers by being on Twitter. I kind of doubled down on LinkedIn because I felt like I could have more conversations. I felt like people went there just for business, so it was a little more of an isolated focus. And I started mixing it up a little bit, and people started to respond. And they said, Jeff, you got kind of a contrarian point of view, and I like the way you look at things. I'm like, cool, well, that kind of feedback makes you want to spend a little more time there. So I've met some people, I've made some real connections there. I think what I do well on social media is, if I have a connection with someone, I will pick up the phone. I will send them an email and say, hey, let's talk. I will reach out to them. I will use that platform as my, as a good representation of who I am. And I know that I show well there, and that gives me a reason to maybe reach out to people that I wouldn't be able to reach out to had I not had a presence somewhere that I could show that I'm someone worth talking to, right? YouTube is a place where I go and I promote and I put the videos out there, because it's another place to be found. But my YouTube homepage, it's okay. It's a placeholder for me. I don't have fancy designs or anything on it. It's not very well organized. It's another thing I need to get to, but I know it's not that important. Instagram is for me. There's pictures of my kids there. There's snapshots from my Orange Theory workouts. Like, I don't go to promote my business very often on Instagram, so I don't focus on that as a channel, but it's someplace that I use for fun. And I have completely ignored Facebook, and I've never looked back. Sorry, all you Facebook Live people.
Dude, you totally did. That was, I remember when we were having that conversation. I think it was back in the Blab days.
Oh, yeah,
when we were
probably.
recording,
Remember
right?
that?
Yeah, that was good times. But yeah, all of a sudden you were like, I'm done with this, and you've been done with it.
The channel didn't serve me. And I think there are so many people, if you ask them, why are you still on Facebook? They say, well, I have to be. Do you?
Do you? That's a really important question. Now I got to ask me too. All right, I'm going to be thinking about that.
I mean, and there's a lot of value that can be derived from it if you're willing to be disciplined with it and take advantage of it. And, a lot of times in order to be disciplined and take advantage of it, you got to have someone help you do it. And the thing is, for as much as, you get in a situation where prospecting is uncomfortable, making calls is uncomfortable, knocking on doors is uncomfortable. Oh, wait, you mean I can just put a bunch of content out and hang out on social media, which is where all my friends are anyway, and we can call that networking, we can call that outreach, we can call that prospecting? Well, what are you doing with it? How many people have you found as a result of, or how many customers have you converted as a result of you doing Facebook Live videos and taking selfies? It's nice to promote, it's nice to have followers, but if those followers don't turn into anything, then if those followers don't turn into anything, then why are you at least fooling yourself that it's helping your business? It's probably not hurting your business, but it actually, I mean, it could be, depending on what you're not doing.
Could be, and
Instead.
it probably is, right? Because you're using that time instead of doing something else. I can't tell you how many times I've been like, oh, I'm working. Are you really? You're promoting, right? And so promoting's part of work, but it's not, you can't go to Facebook and not end up getting caught and sucked into the stream somehow, some way. And then you're like, well, I commented on that, so now I'm top of mind with that person, so it increased my visibility. But to your point, you know, the metric is always the same. Did the phone ring? Did somebody send you an email? Did somebody schedule an appointment, right? It's not, did you get 3,000 views? Did you get 27 likes? Right, so I appreciate your point there, and I think that's some tough love and some real stuff.
I think what it comes down to is Facebook can help you if you're disciplined about using Facebook. Twitter can help you if you're disciplined about using Twitter. LinkedIn can help you. Any social channel can help you, as long as you have a purpose behind it, and as long as you don't even need a specific way to measure it, because in most cases you do, but it's hard to measure the value and the return on investment of a billboard too, right? I mean, I think there's something to be said about constantly being seen, constantly having people be aware of you, but what are you doing to convert that like into a customer? What are you doing to convert that like into a suspect before into a prospect? And then once they're a prospect, what are you doing to move them through a sales process? If you notice someone liked your last 10 Facebook posts, do you reach out with a message? Probably not. Well, that's the prospecting part. You can't just wait for your phone to ring. Right. You have to be someone worth following and worth paying attention to, and that's where those channels are valuable. But if you can't take that conversation offline, if you can't take that conversation to one where, again, you can create some tension and demonstrate some expertise, well, then it's just someone going rah-rah. I mean, your mom probably likes all your Facebook posts too.
My mom does not like hardly any of my Facebook posts. She won't see this video, and she should. All right, so I want to take this back for a second,
please,
because we were talking about calls and outreach and personalization, and are you saying that if I have a list of 20 or 30 people that I've said, okay, they need to hear about this specific offer, right? I've curated the people, I've gone through, I've identified that they have a problem that I'm uniquely qualified to solve. Do I make an individual game plan for each call, for each person? How do we do that so we're not stuck with reaching the 1%?
Well, you said something there that a lot of people don't do, and they may have missed it if they weren't really paying attention, but you said you've curated a list of 20 or 30 people. What does curating a list look like? If you're talking about just grabbing names from a list that you bought somewhere that these are people who could buy what you're talking about, then there's an additional level of curation that needs to happen.
Right, I totally agree. No, and I was talking specifically about, found some hand raisers that were looking for something, and they've identified that they have a problem and that I have a way to solve said problem, right? So I know who they are, what challenge they think they have, right, to go at it, and then have to do some outreach to them, because that's the prospecting part, right?
Yes, so there's a couple, another thing that you said there, a challenge that they think they have. Now, one of the ways that I think a professional salesperson distinguishes themselves from a sales professional is a professional salesperson does not assume that the prospect knows what their problem is.
Fair enough.
Okay? And that's where the expertise comes in. I'm going to show you something you haven't thought about. I'm going to make you aware of something you didn't realize was a problem, but with the right expertise and the right point of view, you can avoid that problem before it even happens. And those are fun discussions to have, because I can demonstrate to my prospects that I will challenge them to think differently. And the prospects, the kind of people that I like to work with are those who like to be challenged to think differently. I know that about myself, I know that about what I bring to the table, and I know that about the best way I can help people, okay? But to answer your question, I've got 20 or 30 people that I know I can solve their problem. At the very least, do more than a mail merge, do a little bit of research on whoever it is that you're talking to, you're calling, you're reaching out to. I get this all the time. The name of my company is Parabola Consulting. That's a name that means something to me and not to anybody else. It's not intended to mean anything to anybody else. It's the legal name of my business. I will get messages on LinkedIn all the time. Jeff, I love the work you're doing at Parabola Consulting LLC. It's like you can hear the bot voice filling in the blank in the form email. Do you really love the work that I'm doing? Because I never use that name ever. It's not on my website. It's at the bottom of my MailChimp, signature, because you got to put a mailing address, whatever. So my PO box is in there. It tells me who I am. But there's nothing significant about that. That actually outs you as not having done any homework at all. Mm-hmm. So find some way to connect, some way to personalize. It can be, hey, I saw that you liked my last 3 posts about X, Y, and Z. To me, that suggests that that's something you're thinking about. I'd love to help you think through that process. Give me a call back. If I don't hear from you, then in 2 days I'm going to send you an email to try to touch base with you that way, right? I mean, those are simple things that you can do that will, 1, keep you on your toes, 2, maybe make things a little less boring for you, and 3, also are more likely to respond or to resonate with the people getting that message.
I think back to the old days. I sold telecom in the earlier part of my career, mm-hmm. right? And you want to talk about ground and pound, or get the grind on, go pull 50 doors, get 50 business cards, go call and make those follow-ups. It was absolutely robotic, right? Mm-hmm. That was the job. And I think about having some of the strategies that you've outlined, or even having the World Wide Web to go do the research, right, and at least have an intelligent conversation, because I think that makes it more relatable, right? They, mm-hmm. at least as a prospect, that this individual took some time to think about me and reach out to me with some level of care. Is that the difference between a sales professional and a professional salesperson? How do you distinguish between those two?
Well, I think first and foremost, a professional salesperson takes responsibility for the outcomes, takes ownership of the outcomes, not just responsibility for the tasks, right? A sales professional gets paid to sell things. Mm-hmm. A professional salesperson takes his or her job so seriously that they want to continue to develop themselves, they want to continue to be the best that they can be, and that means staying uncomfortable, that means looking for ways to improve, that means looking for new ways to reach people. That means having difficult conversations because they need to be had, not avoiding those and moving toward the prospects that they think are going to be the lowest hanging fruit or the easiest to convert. There's a process to selling, and so many people, 1, either ignore a process, or 2, just fall into some playbook that they read 30 years ago about, here's your introductory email and build rapport and establish some value and then overcome objections and whatever. It's like, where is the person-to-person connection there? We're moving in the economy now to places where, it's this gig economy. It's everybody's got their own way of doing things, and we've got remote workspaces and co-work spaces, and people with all the abilities to connect to people with social media and the internet and everything, to kind of abdicate the ability to connect is kind of silly. Mm-hmm. And to water everything down. Look, you can show up and do that and do okay and collect a paycheck and go home and have fun with your kids. But I think more and more, when you water yourself down, you water your talents down, you make yourself replaceable. And all the talk about the robots taking over and everything. Look, if you don't want to be replaced, don't be replaceable. If you don't want to be a pest, don't be a pest. If you don't want to be annoying, don't be annoying. Think a little bit. And people want to be told what to do. I don't tell people what to do. I ask them to think about what they should do, why they're not doing it, and what they need to do in order to get things done. Mm-hmm. That's why I'm a consultant, not a trainer.
That whole thinking thing, that ends up being quite the challenge
It's
for folks.
hard.
It's quite the challenge.
It's hard, but like anything, and we can talk about your call reluctance topic too, is it's hard work, but if you know it needs to be done, then it's worth doing. Or if you know it's worth doing, then you're more willing to do it. Why do people have call reluctance? Well, they don't believe in what they're selling. They don't believe that what they have is worth interrupting someone over. They don't believe that they have the skills or the talent or whatever's necessary to make that call a success. That's a problem.
It's a huge problem. And it's pervasive, right?
But it doesn't have anything to do with the call, is the point.
Right. No,
It's got everything to do with belief.
Yeah.
And, that's the,
I like that you went with heart and I went with head. That's
I think it's both. But
I agree.
I think,
It would have been weird if both of us would have went like this, though, right? That's odd.
can you pat your head and rub your belly at the
No,
same time?
Not and do this.
I can barely walk and chew gum at the same time, but that's that's the thing. It's got to come from somewhere that you're really connected to yourself. And that's where the gig economy comes back and is, that's where it's really valuable, because you got a bunch of people pouring their heart and soul and their passion into something they believe in, and that's why they're willing to make it work.
Passion changes everything, man.
It
It
does.
makes work enjoyable. Holy cow, it's a big difference.
If you're not really passionate about what you're selling or what you're doing, then stop doing it. You want to get rid of call reluctance? This is the interesting thing, and I work with a lot of clients on this, is, if the conversation was right in your wheelhouse, would you have any issues talking to anybody about it?
No.
No. Okay, then make the conversation in your wheelhouse.
Right. And if that means you have to go somewhere else, go somewhere else.
Or if that means that you don't just start with a pitch, but you ask someone a question. You ask a question about the outcome that you can create. Instead of asking about this feature or a leading question that is going to be answered in a way that you know you can do something with, why don't you kind of abandon that pre-planned route? You've got a feature, you've got a benefit, you've got an outcome. It's a crude way of breaking down what your service does for another person. Well, ask a question about the outcome and start a conversation. That conversation is going to be ideally someplace where you're very passionate and you can demonstrate your expertise, you can communicate your enthusiasm, you can transfer that passion, which is what selling is, and you can have a meaningful conversation with somebody.
That makes a ton of sense, man. The outcome is so key, right? Because ultimately, that's that shared vision. That's where everybody wants to get to. Nobody cares about the features. They might care about the benefits, maybe, but it's what you can make happen as a result.
But they may care about those features and benefits if they know what their problem is.
Fair enough.
You can sit down in front of me and talk to me about there's so many things that I don't know about, right? And there's this myth that the customer is more than half of the way through their buyer's journey before they even call a salesperson. That's fine, if they know what to look for. But just because the information's out there doesn't mean that you can assume that they know it all. Because you know what? There's a whole lot of information out there. So how do you even begin to filter that? Right? So if I know what I'm looking for and you tell me about the features, great, I can relate over that. That's fine. But if you start the conversation with the outcome that you can create, I'll ask you about the features. I'll ask you about how you're going to make that happen. That's why,
That's exactly right.
I mean, and let's have a conversation about how your solution can help these people. If it's a business-to-business solution, how are you going to help me increase my profits? How are you going to help me be more productive? I'm not as interested in saving money on what I'm doing as much as I'm interested in doing more work and then generating more profit. I'll spend more money to make more money. But
Absolutely.
if you're just talking to me about something that you know that I don't, and you can't put that into any context for me, if you're spouting about features and benefits and we do this and we do this, well, tell me why I would need that. You're calling me out of the blue. I didn't look for you. So what are you even trying to do for me?
What does it create?
Oh, we've got this app. Cool. I've had, everybody's got to have an app now.
Gotta have an app.
So,
Where is
yeah,
the Parabola app?
there isn't one,
Come
right?
on.
I mean, and that's the thing.
It's coming
it,
soon.
It probably will. But actually, there is something I'm working on. It's not totally an app, but you can get there via an app. You need an app. Tell me, what about my business suggested to you that you needed to call me and tell me that you could develop an app for me? Now, you tell me I need an app, I'm going to tell you no. If you tell me why I need an app, I might argue with you, or I might disagree with you, or I might ignore you. If you tell me what I could do if I had an app, if you tell me how I can better reach my audience if I had an app, if you showed me what that app could do and started creating a picture and started, getting me to think about what would be possible, well, now we'll have a conversation. In the first two situations, I'm likely to ignore you. You talk to me about features, you talk to me about benefits, I'm likely to ignore you. You inspire me with a business conversation about where I could go with your help, probably gonna call you back.
Gotta at least hear you out.
So
Are people still calling and pitching features? Is that still a thing?
more of it is by email than anything else. The
Okay.
calls, 60% of the calls I get are robots trying to tell me that there's always something different. Thank you for being on hold. Like, oh, I didn't even call you. And then you block the number and it comes from like the next number up from the same, the robocalls are ridiculous, but I don't think there are enough people calling.
Yeah, I mean, you wanna distinguish yourself, send a handwritten piece of mail or pick up the
Oh,
phone
man.
and dial.
Sure.
Right? Because that's not what people are doing. Zag when everyone zigs.
Yeah.
So, we talked about a whole mess of stuff. Is there anything that you wanted to cover that we didn't talk about?
I think it's clearly been established by now that if you give me a little bit of leash, I will tie myself up in it. So hopefully I at least got a laugh out of that.
I heard Natalie snicker, and that was like the first time the whole day,
Yes.
so that's really good.
Natalie the apparition.
Yeah, she's over there in the
she's,
blue.
She's somewhere around here.
She's
I
pretty
can
hard to
feel her
see.
presence.
This is the longest no ever, potentially.
It is the longest no ever. I came here because you asked me to sit down and talk to you. So thank you for asking me to sit down and talk to you.
Listen, man, I'm always happy to talk to you. You are insightful. You've got a bunch of great information that you're willing to share. You do it like this. You do it online. You do it via your newsletter. And I think you actually make people better. And I'm really grateful for that because, again, and I said this sincerely, so I got your newsletter on Sunday like I always do. I turned around and shared some of the content on LinkedIn and posted it and was like, yeah, that was really good. Not even thinking that you were gonna be here in 2 days. And that was a wonderful promotion opportunity for our show, right? I didn't even promote the fact that we're having this conversation, that you have that kind of impact, right? And I respect and appreciate that. So tell everybody where they find you. Spell Bajorek because I think that's a IQ test for most people.
It's not that hard.
Well, no, but a little bit.
Yeah. Thank you for saying that. I'm really easy to find. It's jeffbajorek.com. Be like boy, AJOREK, .com. And for that matter, I could tell you to follow me on LinkedIn. I could tell you to follow me on Twitter. I could tell you to go check out and subscribe to YouTube. I could do all that stuff. Go to Google, Jeff Bajorek. I own the first page and a half, at least. I don't look any further than that. I'm out there. I'm out there.
And loving every minute of it.
But I do a lot of this stuff. I like to have conversations like this. These kind of help me flesh out my own ideas. These unstructured interviews are fun because they go wherever they go. Sometimes they're better than others, but they go where they go. And I think you really get the pulse of the consciousness that's in the room, right? I mean, it's not to get too woo-woo. I'm not a woo-woo guy. I'm like a woo guy. I'm like a one woo guy.
Yeah, you're like a singular woo.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Or even a whoa. I'm not even sure you get the full woo.
No, I'll give you a woo.
Okay.
Woo. Okay. So these kind of conversations are fun, but what comes up out of nowhere sometimes is often the most impactful. And we do all of our interviews this way on the show. I mean, we used to script them. We used to have certain questions we wanted to ask. But what I find on our show is that people come on to promote their book or because they've got great ideas, and it gives them a space to speak freely. It gives them a space, and it differentiates us from the other shows where it's just one question after another, and it's less of a junket and more of a sit down in this comfy chair, have something to drink, and let's kind of rap about it. So I do stuff like that all the time. I'm on a bunch of other podcasts in addition to my own. I've got the videos that are out there. You can download the 5 Forgotten Fundamentals for free. PDF is available. You will then get added to the Sunday mailing list. Delete yourself. I mean, if you don't want to hear from me every week, then that's totally fine. But I'm out there trying to reach people who want to be reached. And the big project for this year, which is, I mean, this is really the first time I'm actually saying anything public about it, but I'm creating a membership community online for people to go get together, go somewhere on purpose, learn, grow, and thrive together. And it's not just me that's behind it. I've got a lot of friends that are helping me out, and it's going to be someplace unlike any other membership community that's out there. It's not about me trying to capitalize on 30 years of great content, put it behind a paywall, and say, hey, just pay me money for what I'm doing. It's people are going to pay to be a part of this, but they're going to pay because it's worth doing, and it's going to be a place that there's no other place like it online, because everybody else is doing it the opposite way.
Cool. I'm excited to hear what that is, man. And we'll look forward to seeing more about that when it comes out.
Yeah.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is Jeff Bajorek. Go find him online, get the newsletter. If you're even remotely responsible for growing your business, he can help you. He wants to help you. He will help you. I'm Terry Bean. Thank you for watching the MCC show. We'll see you next Tuesday at 10 a.m. See ya.